Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
In our previous lecture, we had discussed how to add the bleed, which is roughly 3 mm, space or 0.118 inches to the trim size of the book, so that the page layout software, the page that you open in the software, is actually going to be a little larger than the size of the page that you will be left with once the book is printed. The extra white space is trimmed off the page, and then it is bound. So, for the purposes of our discussion, I had begun with a page that was 6 inches by 9 inches, to which, remember, to the width we add once the bleed, and to the height we add the bleed twice. So, my final measurement for my software was 6.118, which is width plus 1 bleed, and it was 9.236, which is height plus 2 bleed. Once we came into the document, I had said we need to access something called the page layout menu. The page layout palette comes on the right-hand side of your page and is accessible from the window menu in case you can't see it. On that page layout menu, we went into the master page. There is something called A Master A, which you can see at the top of that. We accessed that. And then there on the master page, which I am revisiting now for your benefit, on the master page, we then decided to put in all the elements of the page architecture. If your guides are turned on from view, which is what I've just done, you will notice immediately the blue page guides become visible. We placed a 0.75. We went to the picture box tool on our toolbar, and we placed a 0.75 box here. When you first draw it, it's not possible to get the exact measurement. So what we do is we just draw a box, we place it against the blue guide, and then we come down here to the width and the height, and we make sure that we type in the measurement that we want for the box and that it is exactly a square. This box then we copy and we paste on all 4 sides of the page against the blue lines. Please be careful that you are in fact placing it not against the edge of the page, but against the edge of the blue lines on all 4 sides. Once we have established, therefore, through the use of these boxes, the page margin within the blue guides, we go into the ruler area of our screen, which is what I will demonstrate again over here. My mouse cursor is in the ruler area. You just grip. The minute you grip, you'll notice your cursor changes. Now it becomes a 2-sided arrow. The 2-sided arrow indicates that you have gripped a guide and you can pull it down anywhere on the page. If you let go of the guide prematurely, there is no need to worry. You can always grip it again and bring it down wherever you want to. There is another ruler, a vertical ruler, a sort of top-bottom ruler also on the left of the page. There too we go and grip and we pull out a green line. The rule that I was trying to teach you is that every box needs to have a green guide alongside it. This helps us establish a 0.75 margin on both pages. When you are done drawing the green guides, you must delete all the boxes. And now it's time for us to focus on the remaining elements of page architecture. So, in this particular book, which is a volume of short stories, I have decided, or it is advisable, that you have either running head or running feet. The decision whether the running head, whether the book has a running head at the top or a running foot at the bottom is sometimes up to the page or the book designer. Sometimes it is an instruction or a request, a suggestion that has come to you from the editor or the author. In this case, it is just a decision that I have taken for a bit of variety. I would like running heads at the top and the folio at the bottom, therefore foot folios. We have drawn with the T tool. Anytime you want to demarcate an area of text, you come to the toolbar, you take the T tool and you draw a text box. We have decided that the green guides are demarcating the area of text. So everything that we put on the page, ideally all the text matter, it should be focused within, it should be placed within those green guides. Those are going to be our blocks. Once you have a box on the left page, we type in the name of the author. The left page or the verso page always gets the name of the author, as we have here. I'm highlighting it on my screen. And the right-hand side page always gets the chapter title or the name of the book. Please keep this in mind. Sometimes people get very confused and they mix it up. Once you type it in, Quark, at least, or even InDesign, usually tend to have Helvetica 12 as a default typeface. I had also told you that since our body text will be either 10 or 11, our page architectural elements, the running head, the foot folio, etc., all these can never be larger than the body text. So if the body text is going to be either 10 or 11, our page architecture must be a type size, at least a type size less. I would recommend 9 in some fonts. I would also recommend sometimes you can even try 8. If you're worried that it's looking very small on your screen, then if you have access to a black and white printer, later you can take a printout just of one page. If you don't want to waste paper, you can take a printout of just one page, hold that page in your hand, and then see 8.5 or 9 in some typefaces is quite easily readable, and therefore you don't need to worry. If you are worried that it's too small, instead of changing it on every page, I would recommend you come in again to your master page, just change it in this one place, and it will change throughout the document. Having done the running head and the running, you can always change the typeface, you change the type size, and the running head on the left page is taken care of. You can simply copy paste this box onto the next page as we did, and then you can type in or you can copy paste into the box the name of the book or the short story or the chapter on which you are working. After this, we must make provision for the page number. Similarly, we go back to the T tool. We open a box from one side of the green guide to the other, and the command that helps us get the symbol for the page number is command 3. Please notice on these two pages, the page on the left has left aligned running head and left aligned foot folio, and the page on the right has right aligned running head and right aligned foot folio. Please bear this in mind. This is a much neater, nicer, cleaner way of having the page architecture on the page. It doesn't disturb the reading. This is a very traditional arrangement. This book is not necessarily a book of very experimental content. It's a book of text, short stories, and the page architecture can just inhabit the page very quietly. Once in a while, if the reader wants to remember which story they are reading, they can just look at the top or the bottom of the page. Otherwise, when they are interacting with the book, they will in fact forget that the page architecture exists. If your page architecture becomes more prominent than your body text, then that becomes bad design. Page architecture is actually secondary text and should not overwhelm the body text, which is the most important part of the book. The last thing that I showed you in my previous lecture was that after our running heads were done, positioning done, alignment done, typeface chosen, size reduced, same with the page number. Remember always, the page number symbol appears also by default in Helvetica 12. Helvetica 12 is not a font that we like to use. So again, I would recommend just change it to the same font and the same size that you have chosen for your running heads. You don't need a separate typeface for your running head. You don't need a separate typeface for your footfolio. Again, don't overwhelm your design with too many typefaces. Having done all of this, the last task that we had was that there was a big automatic text box. The automatic text box was something you had selected at the start of opening the document. The automatic text box usually sits on the page. We had gripped the handles and made the automatic text box smaller to fit in within the green guides. We had also left, as you can see, a little bit of room between that text box and the footfolio at the bottom, and on the top a little bit of space between the text box and the running head. Then we come into page 1, and now we have to bring the text from Microsoft Word. So with our cursor flashing, if you double click in a text box, the cursor starts to flash and you are able to access text. We had said import text. The shortcut for import text was Command E, and all the text that we wanted for the short story from the Word document then came in to our Quark page. And the magical, miraculous thing is that if you have used automatic text boxes, then it just overflows into as many pages as is required. Yesterday, towards the end of my lecture, the previous lecture, I was showing you how to bring in an image. The image has come, and Quark automatically, as you can see, I'm scrolling, Quark has automatically provided extra pages at the back to hold that text overflow that was caused by the placement of the picture. Once we have got the text, we need to make some universal changes to the text. So we did Control A and selected all the text. The universal changes include change in font family. We don't want to work in Times New Roman or whatever other font was there in Microsoft Word. We change the font, we change the size, and then we may or may not, if we want, we may or may not apply interlinear space, which is known as leading. The main thing is whether we want to increase the leading or not, we must first make it 0 point so that the automatic leading of the font is applied. If nothing else, stay with 0 point or auto leading. Each font comes with a pre-programmed interlinear space. In many cases, in many books, that pre-programmed interlinear space may actually be perfectly okay. Depending on the content, sometimes visually you might find that the automatic leading is a bit tight, the lines are looking a bit too squeezed up. In that case, you can very gently increase the leading by pressing the arrow once or twice. These are the universal changes. 2 more universal changes now need to be applied, in fact, to the paragraphs. All paragraphs, if you're looking now at the bottom of my screen, all paragraphs require an interpara space, and mostly all paragraphs require a first line indent. With the text still selected, come to the bottom of the screen. I had said interpara space of 0.03 is adequate. First line indent is 0.25. The logic of the 0.25, if I'm magnifying my screen now, and you can see that the logic of the 0.25 is that a first line indent should not be more than 3 or 4 characters of the line above it. So if you can look at my screen, you will notice the word she that starts the new paragraph is 4 characters away from the margin. 3 or 4 character indent is enough. Don't make it more, because the eye just needs a little jump to realize, to tell the mind that this is a subsequent paragraph, we are in the story, we are in the chapter, not more than that. Then it becomes an ugly indent. Having done these, then we came back to the first page and I showed you how to then make the exceptional changes. With delete, we got rid of the running head on the display page because there should be no page architecture above the display heading. I then selected the display title and changed the typeface because a display title must be a little larger than the body text. It must be a little more prominent than the body text. It is what must grab the eye on this particular page. So we changed the typeface. Again, I did not introduce yet another typeface. I simply went with the typeface that we had used on the master page for the running head and the running feet. By doing this, I am establishing a certain continuity, a certain inner logic to the text, where I am telling the reader that the main text will be in a serif font, but all the secondary text, all the decorative text is in one non-serif font. I am merely playing with the sizes, the shape, the style that I am applying, right? I am not overwhelming the design with too many typefaces. Then we figured out and we fixed the indent for this little block quotation that appears at the beginning. And I told you there must be a drop from the display title to the block quote, and then a slightly smaller drop from the block quote to the first para. The first paragraph is always a flush paragraph. So we went to it and we removed the first line indent. You can remove a first line indent by simply changing the first line indent value to 0. I also, when I went through the document page by page with you, I showed you how we put extra space before a section break, and we removed the artificial enter or return mark that had been pressed in Microsoft Word. I also said every time a new section begins, you must make sure the first paragraph of that section is a flush paragraph. So every now and then, as you scroll through the pages that you have typeset, you must keep an eye out and simply turn the first line indent value to 0. Here on this top paragraph, I showed you how we can reduce kerning. We had selected this paragraph and we had come to the bottom of the screen, and near where we had got the font size, there was an option. You can see I'm highlighting it now. The kerning is showing up as -1. This had helped get rid of what I call widows and orphans. Widows and orphans should be avoided. You shouldn't have one half-broken word at the end of a paragraph. You shouldn't have a line isolated at the end of a page. And you shouldn't have a dangling line at the top of another page. Sometimes a word can be hyphenated across 2 pages. We must try and avoid that. In situations like that, very, very gently, you can either increase the leading very, very, very gently, or you can increase or decrease the kerning very, very gently. I am emphasizing the very, very gentle because the minute the special effects become more evident, the minute you apply too much kerning, the letters get squeezed up. The minute you apply too much leading, either the lines are spread too far apart or the lines become compressed, and the reader will be able to spot, and that will be bad typesetting. I had also taught you from the edit menu how we can go to an option called H and J's, which is basically hyphenations and jags. And there in the standard option, we can say minimum before must be 3. The default for Quark is minimum before is 2. We simply change that, and then we make sure hyphens in a row, which is where my cursor is hovering now, we make sure hyphens in a row is set to 2. At the end of the lines, 1 hyphen, next line has another hyphen. That's 2 hyphens in a row. 2 hyphens in a row is perfectly okay, but more than 2 is not. So you can set that over here from H and J's. Now today, I deliberately am doing this recap in a bit of detail and taking my time with it because I want you also to recap with me. I want you to make your notes. I want you to get as used to this process as possible, because up to this point is mandatory for all books. Okay? Up to this point of the formatting of the paragraphs, removing widows and orphans, keeping an eye out on the hyphenation, changing the font family, all of this that I have done, these universal and these exceptional changes are a standard for 90% of books. no matter how experimental the content, no matter how experimental the design, you cannot get away from this basic amount of typesetting. What will the font look like? What will the page architecture look like? How much interpara space will I give? How much leading will I give? And are there any broken words or hanging lines at page top or page bottom? This is basic. It's so basic, I would even go as far as to call it typesetting hygiene. This is your starting point. Many special effects can follow, but this you cannot avoid. Today, I'm going to show you something also that you cannot avoid, which is I will now help you do the preliminary pages for this book, the front matter for this book. Usually, when we design or typeset books, we do the content first. By content, I don't mean the table of content, I mean the inner pages. We first typeset and design the whole book. What is the text? Where are the pictures? What are the captions? Anything or everything on the inner pages. So we start at page 1. This helps us decide the type family. It helps us decide the margins. It helps us decide, what are we going to have only one font for both things, the running heads as well as the body text? Are we perhaps going to have 2 typefaces? When you absolutely begin the book, you will notice you spend some time over these decisions. It takes you a little while to arrive at the look of the book. So when I am designing, it often takes me a bit of time to get a fix on my first chapter. Sometimes I change the font 2 or 3 times. Sometimes I revisit my master page and I change often the alignment, sometimes of my page architecture, or I think, no, it's looking too big. The running head or the footfolio is looking too big or it's looking too small. So the first chapter will take you the most time because you are then coming to grips with the look of the book. Once the first chapter is done, you can simply save as, and you can carry on then using the first chapter as a template for the rest of your document. Right at the end of the book, when all of it has been designed, all the font family choices have been made, etc., etc., then we come to actually do the preliminary matter. It's a very funny thing because when you open the book as the reader, the prelims pages, as we call them in shorthand, the preliminary matter is what you see right at the beginning. You open the book and when you're browsing, you start at the beginning and you leaf through the book. But oddly enough, at least when I design the opening pages right at the end. I'll give you an analogy. All of you must be seeing or watching movie trailers. So you will now realize that the whole movie is done and then the trailer is composed of bits taken from that finished movie. Similarly, in a book, we design the whole book and then typefaces, design elements, etc. are taken from that book and put into the front matter. I am now going to show you how to do the front matter for this book. The front matter, by its very name, will be sitting before the main body text begins. So what I will do is I come in here and I click on page 1 on my page layout. If you right click on any icon, any of the pages in the page layout, you notice a little menu will pop up and I choose Insert Pages. You can either insert pages, you can delete pages, various options are there. We will go through them one by one. At this point, I want to put pages before page 1. Can you see? If you can look on my screen, it says before page, after page, or at the end of layout. This means that in any software, you can either put it before a certain page number, you can even change the number over here, you can put it after any particular page number, any page that you choose depending on your design. You might suddenly need a page inserted in the middle of your design, in which case you can specify, give me a blank page at this point. Now, in order to do the front matter, I want pages even before this short story that I have been typesetting with all of you. And how do I know how many pages I'm going to need? In my head, I'm counting. If you remember, our lectures on the ideal arrangement of parts of the book. The first page is going to be a half title page. Then I'm going to have a blank page. Then I will have a full title page. Then I will have the copyright page. Then I will have my table of contents. And then I will possibly have a blank page, because my table of contents may not be very large. But the sixth page, the blank page, is vital, because without it, we cannot have the book beginning on the right-hand side. And it is imperative that page 1 fall on the right-hand side. We have already discussed how odd numbered pages are recto pages or right-hand side pages compared to even number pages, which are verso pages, as in they fall on the left-hand side, right? So I just now counted 6 pages with you. I am going to say insert 6 pages before page 1. And I say okay, and I want you to keep an eye on my page layout the minute I say okay. And here we are. We have now 6 pages at the beginning of the document. Can you see that? Page 6. 6 ends on the left-hand side, and my story, which was earlier beginning on 1, is now showing page 7. I am not so worried about this at the current moment. I want to show you how we do the prelims pages. For the time being, I will just assume that this short story is also, the name of this short story is also the title of the book. I'm just assuming. The title could be anything else. For the time being, I'm just using the title of this short story as the title of the book. So I can come into my story, I can highlight the title, I can press Command C, and I go right to the top, what is now my page 1. And you can see this, all of these pages have come in following the model of my title page, of the master page that I had created. So I come into this text box and I paste the title. Okay, I have pasted the title. This page is actually my half title page. You will remember when we had discussed parts of the book, I said often you have an abbreviated version of a very long title on the half title page. It's a gentle, quiet introduction into the book, into the content. Now I highlight the half title page text and I see it is 14 point. I see that it's 14 point. It can possibly be 12. It can be a little smaller. It can be a little gentler. It doesn't have to be very big. So this is 12 point. Now I come on to this page, my page 2. I don't have anything to put on page 2. Page 2 can stay blank. Depending on this author, if we have more books by this author, I can later take a decision to say we can have on page 2 a list, more books available from this author, or more books available from translated from the German. But if I have nothing, I can simply leave page 2 blank. On page 3, you know that we need the title and the name of the author. This is going to be the title page, which means everyone associated with this book, not internally in the publishing house, but everyone who has contributed to creating the manuscript, all those people must be credited on the title page. So the first person that we have to credit, and I can see her name right over here. I can see the name of the author over here. The first person who needs to be credited is, of course, the author. Then we have the title of the book, and often we will also have a translated by credit. Let's just say translated by Jack Smith, the name of the translator. Now, we have all the content on the full title page. Often, we will also have a logo. You must, in fact, have, the publisher will send you their logo. The logo will appear roughly like this at the bottom of the page. The alignment, of course, will depend on you. We will just pretend that this little black circle is the logo. Roughly, the bottom part of the page is where the logo appears. Now, I have got all the text for the title page, but to my eye, this is not necessarily looking very wonderful. First thing that I want to fix by coming to the bottom of my screen where I have my shortcut bar, there at the bottom of the screen, I choose the center alignment. Ideally, the name of the author should get a little more prominence. Right now, it's very small. You will notice because I had typed it in, it is sitting in Helvetica 12. I want to change that. So I check what this font is. If I want to be a little clever, if I want to be a little sophisticated, I can always go into my body text and choose the serif font that I had decided for the body text. I can copy a word and I can bring it in here. I can copy a word, I can bring it in here, and I can use that word to type in my author's name, so that already I am establishing from the first few pages of the book that when the reader reads it, they will in fact get a serif and non-serif combination, right? That is another purpose of the prelims, and that is another reason why we design them right at the end, because by then we know the fonts that we have used and we can play around with them in representing different parts of the preliminary pages. I have written it therefore in my body text font. I come down to the bottom of my screen and I press the center alignment, and I want it much larger than this. This is 12 point. 12 point is fine in the body text, but on the title page it may be a bit small. So how about let's make it 18 and see. We can even make it 24 and see. A little bit of a drop from the top of the text box would be nice. So I press enter once, and then I can increase the space after from the title itself. I can come down to the paragraph and I can perhaps make it half an inch. Just so, as you can see what happened on my screen, just so that the title and the author name are not sort of clinging to each other as if they're packing, they're traveling on a very packed bus. There should be enough breathing room. I can also, if I want, treat my title like this. I can have it center aligned. This has too much space after. I can just change it to 0. So my title appears like this. The title itself also could be a little larger. I can make it 18 point, and I think it is looking very squished. This is an example of bad leading, bad interlinear space. The lines are looking too closed. So I will click on this leading arrow and just space it out a little bit more. Last, we are left with the name of the translator. The name of the translator can be in 10 or 9, does not have to be overwhelming the page. That looks perfectly okay. If you want, you can increase the kerning, as you can see the cursor flashing in the little kerning slot, to 10 even if you wish. And here we have our title page done. Now we move on to the next page, which is going to be our copyright page. Some mandatory bits of text are often the name of the publisher. Now, the minute I start typing, I remember that this types in Helvetica 12. To make my own life easier, I stop typing, I go back to the body text. Again, I choose a word from the first flush paragraph and I bring that word back here and I just paste it. Now, whatever else I will type in this text box will take the properties, the font, the size of this particular word. So often, or at least in the Seagull books titles that we publish, we put the name of the publishing house and the date, so that when people look at this book, they see easily when the book was published. We like to have this line in bold. So I come down to my font menu, and as you can see, Adobe Caslon Pro has all these options. I choose semi-bold. Can you see on my screen that immediately the typeface has changed? Then we have, very importantly, the elements after which this page has been named. which is we have the copyright information. In this case, I will say original German text and then the copyright symbol, which on a Mac at least is arrived at by pressing Alt or Option G. You may need to see on a PC how you can arrive at this. I think there is a shortcut, and then I say Eva Menace. I am typing this in, but often for a typesetter, this will be given to you by the editor or the author. I also say English translation. The copyright belongs to the translator. I think we had chosen someone just called Jack Smith, and the date. These two lines do not need to be in semi-bold. They can just be regular again. Then we must have something called the ISBN number. You may recall I had discussed it with you in previous lectures. I had said it's the International Standard Book Number and is almost like the Aadhaar card for every book. Different countries have different sequences of numbers, but all countries now, it's universally accepted that the ISBN number is 13 digits. So I am just going to type in this now and leave it at that. Again, the ISBN number will be supplied to you by the person you're working with. Usually publishers acquire ISBN numbers and then assign one to each book. So the editor that you're working with will send you the ISBN number. I am simply doing this to show you this is the bare minimum information that is mandatory to be present on every book's copyright information page. After this, you often have published by, so we will just put my name here for the time being, and then something that looks like this: on behalf of Seagull Books Private Limited, and then you have the office address. This is required by law, so all publishers have to put this in. Then you have the typeset credit. So here will come typeset and designed by, and I'm doing it, so I'm going to put my name. And after this, you must have a credit for the printer, whoever has printed and bound this book. So printed and bound by, and you can have the name of the printing press. It can be in your city, it can be a city elsewhere, no matter. Right? This information will have been given to you by the editor. You must make sure that it is appearing on page 4. There is no other place that this information can appear. Now, some thoughts about the title verso. Usually editors and typesetters and book designers think that this is a very boring page. They think nobody wants to engage with it. They think nobody wants to read it. So they often don't pay very much attention to it. What they will do is they'll just leave a block of text like this and they don't bother. I would like to tell you that each bit of the copyright information should be an individual bit of information. It actually means different things. The date of publication is not the same as the ISBN number. The ISBN number is not the same as the copyright information, and so on. So, at the date, I take your cursor to the date, come down to the paragraph and increase the space after. I'm going to put point 2. Come to the second line of the copyright information, increase the space after, put point 2. If nothing else, the same, but have some distance between the different brackets of text. Here, a little more gentle, I'll put point 1. Now, my copyright page has also been typeset, and ideally, you can either just close the box from the top, because usually the copyright information sits at the bottom of the page. Either you can do it like this, the way I just did, by closing the box, or you have another option, which is at the bar at the bottom, at your home bar at the bottom of the screen. There are these alignments On the right, where you can see my mouse is, one option here is bottom alignment, and all the copyright text just sits at the bottom. In my next lecture with all of you, we will carry on from this point. We will design a table of contents, and there are a few other steps concerning the prelim matter or the front matter that I would like to discuss and share with all of you.
Hi, I'm Chitwan Lalji, a PhD student of Health Economics under the supervision of Dr. Debayan Pakrashi from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Kanpur. In one of my essays, I'm interested in understanding the relationship between consumption of fruits and vegetables and various health indicators. Health indicators, both subjective and objective health indicators like mental health, self-assessed health, various measures of blood pressure and various measures of cholesterol. Measures of blood pressure like systolic and diastolic BP. You have your incidence of high BP, MAP, and incidence of high MAP. And as far as cholesterol is concerned, I have tried to concentrate more on total cholesterol, good cholesterol, and incidence of high cholesterol. Now, before I go on to what have been my major contributions and various policy implications, I would like to briefly tell you about the policy initiatives of WHO and various countries. The WHO, that is the World Health Organization, it started with a campaign of 5 a day. That is, you should have 5 portions of fruits and vegetables per day. That would be approximately, you could say, 400 grams of fruits and vegetables. Now, a portion, before we go further, I'll just tell you what exactly is a portion. One portion is equivalent to a medium-sized apple, or one small glass of fruit juice, which is approximately 150 milliliters, and maybe 3 teaspoons of vegetables. So, the WHO went with a 5 a day campaign, which was further taken up by various countries. Countries like UK, Netherlands, Germany, Norway, they adopted the 5 a day policy, while some went for expansionary dietary policies like France, Australia, Canada, Denmark. So, for example, Australia, it went for 2+5 policy, in which it said that you should consume 2 portions of fruits and 5 portions of vegetables per day. And USA went for a policy of fruits and vegetables more matters. That is, you must consume more and more fruits and vegetables. Now, irrespective of these expansionary dietary policies and dietary propagations, it has been found that only 28% of women and 25% of men, they actually meet the recommended dietary norms of 5 a day portion. So, the major contribution of my work is firstly to find an association between fruits and vegetables, whether there exists a relationship between fruits and vegetables and health indicators, and if they exist, whether due to heterogeneity in the data. So, I will be doing it according to age, by gender, and by your weight. So, apart from that, I will go for policy recommendations, in which I am basically studying how much fruits and vegetables matter. Apart from that, which type matters more. So, for that, I have taken data from the Health Survey of England. Health Survey of England is an annual survey which takes data, which conducts information regularly on demographic and socioeconomic characteristics. You have your lifestyle behaviors like an individual smokes or doesn't smoke, alcohol consumption, you have your sedentary and physical activities, and you have various health indicators also which have been collected. Before I go on to what exactly is my research, I would like to concentrate more on fruits and vegetables, like what kind of questions were asked in the survey. Questions like, what kind of fresh fruit do you eat? Did you eat any dried fruit yesterday? Don't count dried fruits in cereals, cakes. Apart from that, for vegetables, they asked how many tablespoons of vegetables did you eat yesterday? So approximately after this whole survey was conducted, data was converted into portions of fruits, and like for example, 3 tablespoons of vegetables is equivalent to 1 portion. So data was converted and provided to the users, that is us, from the UK Data Health Survey. So the major contributions of my paper is that I found a strong negative association between intake of fruits and self-assessed health, then various measures of blood pressure like mean arterial pressure, high blood pressure, systolic and diastolic BP, and your total cholesterol. Apart from that, I have found a strong positive association between consumption of vegetables and good cholesterol. So it is recommended in a way that if you want to control your blood pressure, you must consume more and more fruits. And as far as vegetables are concerned, they impact your good cholesterol. Apart from that, I went in for a falsification test. A falsification test is basically conducted to know whether the model that you have adopted and the conclusions that you are drawing are not spurious. So, if a falsification test is done to know, in a way it is tested by seeing an indicator, a health indicator which is not being impacted by your consumption of fruits and vegetables, and then we see whether there is significant result or not. If there is no significant result, that means your model is good and your results are non-spurious. So what we did is, for falsification test, we took ear complaints and infectious diseases. Now ear complaints, like if you are deaf since birth or you have some kind of imbalance, body imbalance, that is not being impacted by your consumption of fruits and vegetables, and we did find insignificant results. Apart from that, infectious diseases like HIV, AIDS, etc., we found similar insignificant results, indicating that our results are non-spurious. Apart from that, we went, since there was a lot of heterogeneity in the data, like by gender, by age and by weight, we did the regression analysis. We found results which stated that as far as fruits are concerned, it impacts a male's health more than a female's health. So it is basically said a man should consume more fruits to impact his health, whereas as far as vegetables are concerned, they impact a women's health more. But this has been only seen as far as cholesterol is concerned, the various measures of cholesterol like total cholesterol, good cholesterol and your incidence of getting high cholesterol. Now after this, we went in for a policy implication, and in the policy implication we tried to find 2 policy implications: what matters and exactly how much portion matters. So as far as how much portion matters, we have found that on an average 5 or more portions of fruits impact your overall health, that is your self-assessed health, your MAP, your incidence of high MAP and incidence of high BP. But if you want to have a good mental health, so you can optimize your mental health by consuming 3 or 4 portions of fruits as well. And similarly, as far as self-assessed health and total cholesterol is concerned, an individual must consume 4 to 5 portions to optimally have the impact of consumption of fruits. Apart from that, vegetables have had a very little impact on your health. It only impacts your incidence of getting high MAP and high BP, and it's seen that only it impacts when you consume 5 or more portions of fruits. So an optimum consumption of 5 or more portions of fruits and vegetables are recommended, but fruits have a more impact on your overall health, on various measures like self-assessed health, mental health, your various measures of blood pressure and various cholesterol levels. Another thing that we find is which type of fruit matters. It has been seen that all size fruits, they impact your self-assessed health, your systolic and diastolic blood pressure, your mean arterial pressure, your high BP and incidence of getting high MAP and high cholesterol. But we find that as far as frozen fruits or canned fruits are concerned, they help in regulating your incidence of getting high MAP or high BP, but it has a trade-off. That means there is something negative happening. It reduces the good cholesterol in your body. Apart from this, if you have an incidence of getting high cholesterol, it is recommended that you must consume fruit juices because it has an impact in reducing your probability of getting high cholesterol. And dried fruits, they impact your self-assessed health. As far as vegetables are concerned, very little impact has been seen. It has only been seen in case of portion of salads and its association with self-assessed health. Another thing that they have seen is vegetables in composite, they have an association with good cholesterol. So overall, my research basically says that there is an association between consumption of fruits and vegetables and various health indicators, and it is highly recommended that an individual, in order to be healthy, must consume 5 or more portions of fruits and 5 or more portions of vegetables per day. But fruits have a more impact on your overall health. Apart from that, all size fruits, they have a better impact on your overall health, your mental health, various measures of blood pressure and cholesterol. So, thank you.
I am A.K. Sharma and I am Professor of Sociology at IIT Kanpur. The question I am going to address is what is urbanization? Urbanization is essentially the process of population concentration, which means that if more people start living in a smaller number of places, or if the distribution of population becomes more unequal, like more people living in places like Bombay, Calcutta, Mexico, then we say that the urbanization is taking place. Essentially, it means increase in percentage of population living in areas or localities which are defined as urban. Urbanization is a new phenomenon, of course, a post-industrial phenomenon. About 200 years ago, hardly 5% population of the world lived in urban areas, and today more than 50% population of the world is living in urban areas or localities which are classified as urban. You will be happy to know that according to 2011 census of India, in our own country for the first time, increase in the urban population has been greater than the increase in the rural population. Though India is not so urban as the developed countries, and about 31% population of India only is living in urban areas. We can believe that in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years time, India will also be more urban, at least more urban than what it is. It may not be 80%, but certainly it will be 35% or 40%. Now, how is this urban locality defined? Because this definition of locality as urban or rural is crucial to measure level of urbanization. I will give you definition of our own country. In Indian census, an urban locality is defined in two ways. There are statutory towns and there are census towns. All places with municipality, municipal corporation, cantonment or notified town area committees are called urban. This is statutory definition. According to demographic definition, there are three main criteria. If a locality has more than 5,000 people or 75% of male labor force is engaged in non-agricultural activities, or the density of population is 400 per square kilometer or 1000 per square mile, then we say that the locality may be classified as urban. There are many other additions to this definition. Now, we have the concept of urban agglomeration and many other things, but essentially this is how urban population is defined in India. And as I said that urbanization is associated with economic development and industrialization, same is the case with India. About 100 years ago in India only 11% people were living in urban areas, today 31% are living in urban areas, and this is obviously linked with economic development of the country, growth of per capita income and industrialization. I remember that in one 5-year plan it was mentioned that today this urban population can grow by way of natural increase of births minus deaths in the urban areas itself or through rural to urban migration. Today nearly 60% contribution to growth of urban population is due to rural to urban migration, and this is going to increase. This is essentially what urbanization means. Urbanization means growth of population in localities defined as urban in relation to population of localities defined as rural, and I have given you Indian definition. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning everybody. I am Raghunandan Sengupta. So, I will just give you a very brief excitement area of finance, which is quantitative finance, and that has a huge market starting around about 10 years back, and it is exploding exponentially. So, what do we mean by quantitative finance? Quantitative finance is actually the application of different mathematical and statistical techniques in the area of financial markets, be it say for example derivative pricing, be it in the area of say for example portfolio management, be it in the area of asset liability management, be it in the area of portfolio management. We see that the application has exploded in such a way that there is a huge opportunity for people who have a quantitative background in mathematics and statistics. They can utilize those in the area of finance, but obviously with some prior knowledge of finance as a subject. Now, when we say about quantitative finance, as I said, it is an area of applied mathematics and statistics applied in financial markets. Use of different areas, if somebody is interested to know, we have stochastic calculus, we have derivative pricing, we have operation research, we have quantitative techniques like differential equations, stochastic calculus, time series, and they are heavily used in the area of quantitative finance as I mentioned. Now, we all know that in 1997 the Nobel Prize in Economics, so it is basically the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics was given to the work of Merton and Scholz in the area of derivative pricing, and after that there has been exponential increase in the area of quantitative techniques in quantitative finance and in the area of different type of derivative pricing. With the advent, moreover with the advent of high-ended and sophisticated computing data, big data has come in a very big way, where application areas starting from computing, from different type of algorithm design have been taken up in such a big way that nowadays at least we are able to understand that how high frequency data algorithm trading can be utilized using the concept of quantitative finance in the area of finance as such. But there is a flip side also, obviously when there is a huge amount of development. So, obviously due to some regulation errors or something, there has been some pitfalls, which I think should be a bullet point for people who are really interested to take up quantitative finance. They should be aware. So, consider the financial crisis in 2008 and later on, and we are seeing different banks are failing, different financial institutions are facing a problem, countries are facing a problem like in Europe, in USA. So, what should be done? So, the main thing is that even if you know the technique, is best for people who are investors, who are private players, organizations like banks, governments should use these techniques in a very somber manner, such that the application areas of quantitative finance using the techniques which we learned can be utilized in the best possible way to garner the overall the in-depth knowledge a person has in trying to utilize these quantitative techniques in finance. And I am sure that people who have the background, who have the knowledge, who have the sophistication, who have the knowledge of the society can definitely use quantitative finance in a very big way in trying to make their mark in this exciting field, which you are going to see in years to come. And I am sure it will be a very exciting learning tool for all the participants who will take quantitative finance as a subject in years to come. Thank you, and I wish all the participants all the best and best of luck for the programs they will take. Thank you.